At 2 a.m., after 14 hours in a hospital waiting room praying my mother would survive surgery, I pulled into my driveway and found my spot taken by my neighbor's party guests. Exhausted, I knocked on his door and pleaded, "Please, just one spot, I have nowhere else to go." He laughed loudly in my face, slammed the door, and moments later, his friends began chanting from the porch. "Crybaby! Crybaby!" I sat in my car alone for 3 hours until they finally left, watching the sunrise through smeared, tear-soaked windows. I'm not a man who usually shares much. 53 years old. Retired military. I've dealt with my share of pain, but this was different. It started at 2 a.m. That day, I'd spent 14 hours in Mercy General's waiting room. My mom, who raised me and my brother alone after Dad passed, had suffered a massive stroke. The kind the doctors say is life-changing, in the best-case scenario. By the time the surgeon came out and told me she was stable but critical, I could barely stand. My legs felt like rubber. My head pounded from the vending machine coffee and lack of sleep. I drove home praying the worst was behind me. I just wanted to pull into my driveway, crawl into bed for 3 or 4 hours, and get back to the hospital by sunrise. But when I turned onto my street, Oak Ridge Court, a small cul-de-sac in Middletown, Louisville, I froze. My entire driveway was blocked. 4 cars. One even halfway up my lawn, crushing the patch of flowers Mom had planted last spring. The rest of the street looked like a Walmart parking lot at Christmas. That's when I heard the music. Bass thumping so hard it shook my rearview mirror. My neighbor Ethan. The party prince. He bought the place next door about a year ago. Young guy, maybe 30. IT worker by day, full-time frat boy by night. Since moving in, he turned his home into an Airbnb/party house. Every weekend, strangers flooded the street. Loud music. Beer cans on the lawns. Once, a couple of his guests had even gotten busy in my backyard when they thought nobody was watching. I had tried to be patient. I'd asked politely. I'd called the non-emergency police line a few times. Nothing changed. But that night? I just needed one thing. My spot. I got out of the car, knocked on his door. It swung open fast. Ethan stood there, cup in hand, pupils wide. Probably drunk or worse. Behind him, I saw people dancing, laughing. A girl threw up into a planter by his stairs. Nobody even blinked. "Hey, Ethan," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. "My mom's in the hospital. I've been there all day. I just need my driveway clear so I can park. That's all." He took a long sip from his cup. Looked back inside like he was about to call someone over. Then he laughed. Right in my face. A deep, mean belly laugh. "You serious, man? It's a party. First come, first served." He smirked like a spoiled teenager. Then he slammed the door in my face. I stood there stunned. My ears burned. Not a minute later, a group of his guests spilled out onto the porch. Young guys and girls, drunk off their asses. They pointed at me sitting in my car and started chanting like playground bullies. "Crybaby! Crybaby! Crybaby!" I didn't yell. I didn't threaten. I just sat in my car, hands gripping the steering wheel so hard my knuckles ached. For 3 hours I sat alone. Eyes red. My breath fogging the window. The chants faded, the music thumped on, and I watched the sunrise through smeared, tear-soaked glass. That was the night I decided, this man had taken enough from me. Now, I was going to take everything from him. The days that followed felt like sleepwalking. Mom survived. She couldn't talk much. Couldn't move the right side of her body. The doctor said it would take months of rehab. I visited her every day. Managed her bills. Paid her mortgage. Helped my brother make plans to move her into my house once she was stable enough. But every evening when I came back home, Ethan's parties kept going. 3-4 nights a week. Loud. Messy. Dangerous. And every time I tried to speak to him, or his guests, they laughed. Mocked me. Like I was the crazy old guy in the neighborhood. I started writing everything down. Every incident. Every noise complaint. Every time my driveway was blocked. Dates, times, photos, videos. I kept a folder thick as a phone book. I also did some digging. I found out Ethan wasn't just throwing parties. He was running an illegal Airbnb business. His house was zoned strictly residential. No short-term rentals allowed. Even worse? Some of his guests had criminal records. I found that out after one of them got arrested for DUI right at the entrance to our street. I gathered evidence. Quietly. Carefully. Then I started talking to the other neighbors. Most were young couples or small families. They'd kept their heads down because they didn't want trouble. But once I showed them what I'd found, proof of zoning violations, noise complaints, and criminal activity, they were ready to act. We created a private neighborhood chat. Excluded Ethan. Shared every violation, every photo. Built a case. I hired an attorney. Not cheap. Retired military pensions don't stretch far. But this was worth every dollar. We filed formal complaints with the city zoning board, the state licensing division, and the IRS tip line. At the same time, a few of my neighbors filed nuisance suits against Ethan. Noise ordinances. Parking violations. Littering. Harassment. The city moved fast once the paperwork hit their desks. Ethan's illegal rental was ordered shut down. He was fined thousands. But he wasn't about to roll over. He doubled down. Started parking his own car across my driveway in the early mornings so the mail carrier would skip my deliveries. He'd let his dog bark all night. Sometimes, I'd catch him and his friends standing on their porch, mimicking crying sounds whenever I walked to my car. Wah! Crybaby Dave lost his spot again! I didn't take the bait. Instead, I installed a small trail camera inside my mailbox post. Caught every single incident on video. Went back to my attorney. We filed for a harassment restraining order. The judge reviewed the video footage and granted it. Ethan was legally barred from coming within 100 feet of my property. With the restraining order in place, Ethan's options shrank fast. No more parking games. No more trespassing. No more chanting on the porch. But I wasn't done yet. I hired a contractor. Built a decorative steel fence around my property with locking driveway gates. Fully permitted. Fully legal. The day the posts went in, Ethan lost his mind. He stormed into the yard, screaming that I was destroying the community vibe. He called the city inspector. The inspector showed up, looked over my permits, and left with a shrug. He's within his rights, he told Ethan. That was the moment Ethan realized he wasn't dealing with a passive old man anymore. But the final blow was still coming. Through a contact at the county clerk's office, a friend of my late father's, I found out Ethan had been skimming on his property taxes for years. His Airbnb income, unreported. His mortgage, adjustable rate, and it had just reset to a much higher payment. The fines, legal fees, and lost income from his shut-down rental business had left him drowning. A foreclosure notice hit his door within 2 months. I watched him try to fight it. Tried to list the house for sale. But nobody wanted to buy a property with active lawsuits and city fines attached. In June, a moving truck arrived. He didn't have his friends with him this time. No chanting. No laughter. Just Ethan and a woman, his girlfriend, I guessed, hauling boxes into a rented truck. I stood on my porch. Silent. Coffee in hand. Watching. As he pulled out of the driveway for the last time, he glared at me. Pure hate in his eyes. I didn't smile. Didn't gloat. I just nodded. You'd think that'd be the end, right? Ethan gone. House empty. Peace restored. But that's not how life works. The house sat vacant for weeks. Grass grew wild. Flyers piled up at the door. A for sale sign went up, but with all the legal mess attached, nobody bid. One night, about a month after Ethan left, I heard tires crunching gravel. Looked out the window. An old silver pickup pulled into the driveway. 3 guys climbed out. Rough looking. Not neighbors. Not buyers. Squatters. By morning, they'd kicked in the back door. The house became a new kind of nightmare. Trash everywhere. Noise at night. One even tried to siphon gas from my truck. When I came out and confronted him, he just smiled with rotted teeth and said, "Ain't your problem, old man." I called the cops. They came. Took reports. But without the bank or a new owner pressing charges, their hands were tied. Evictions take time. The neighborhood chat fired back up. People were scared. Some wanted to pitch in for private security. Others wanted to confront the squatters directly. But I had a different idea. First, I bought 2 more trail cams. Put one in my front yard. One across the street on my buddy Rick's property, aimed at the empty house. Then I started documenting. Again. Same playbook. Date. Time. Photos. Video. Trespassing. Public intoxication. Vandalism. I also called the bank listed on the foreclosure notice. Gave them everything I had. At first, they brushed me off. But once they saw the footage, and heard from my lawyer, they acted. Filed for a court-ordered eviction. Took 6 weeks, but the squatters were finally tossed out. I offered to mow the overgrown lawn for free while the bank handled the sale. Not out of kindness. Out of strategy. If I kept the place from looking like a haunted house, it wouldn't attract more trouble. The bank agreed. A month later, the house finally sold. I thought things were turning around until I met the buyer. Marcus. Mid-40s. Real estate. Entrepreneur. Said all the right things at first. Moving in soon. Respecting the neighborhood. Blah blah blah. Within 2 weeks, he started converting the house into, another Airbnb. Construction crews. Dumpsters. Contractors working until midnight. When I confronted him politely, he shrugged. Got all my permits. This is how you increase property value, old man. The old anger, the cold, sharp kind that had driven me before, came rushing back. This time, I wasn't going to wait for the damage to get out of hand. I called the city office. Asked for the permit records. Marcus had applied for short-term rental approval. But he had a problem. He was 1 application behind on required inspections. That meant the house couldn't legally host overnight guests yet. Did he care? Of course not. By early fall, guests were arriving. Bachelor parties. Loud music. Beer cans in the yard. Déjà vu. But this time, I didn't knock. I didn't beg. I didn't give anyone the chance to call me a crybaby again. Instead, I activated the network. The neighborhood chat now had 12 families. All ready? All documenting. All prepared. We reported every single illegal rental stay. Noise complaints. Zoning violations. Police reports. Health department violations. One of Marcus's guests dumped trash bags full of beer bottles in the creek behind the houses. It was war. And this time, I wasn't alone. By November, Marcus owed over $8,000 in fines. He tried to push back. Threatened to sue me for harassment. My lawyer laughed when I told him. He can't sue you for enforcing the law, he said. But Marcus didn't stop. He tried bribing some of the younger neighbors. Offering free nights at his luxury rental in exchange for dropping complaints. 2 families took him up on it, until they found a drunk guest passed out in their front yard one morning. That's when even the quiet neighbors got mad. Now, every house on Oak Ridge Court was united. The city launched an investigation. Marcus's permits were suspended. But instead of backing down, he doubled the nightly rates and told guests to be discreet. That just made the guests rowdier. Then, the final twist hit. Remember Ethan? He wasn't gone for good. I got a letter in the mail. A notice that Ethan was suing me for harassment and defamation. Claimed my actions forced him into foreclosure, ruined his reputation, and caused severe emotional distress. His new address? Guess who rented Marcus's Airbnb for a month? Yep. Ethan was back, and he wasn't just here to party. He was here to fight. When I got that notice from Ethan's lawyer, I didn't panic. But for the first time in a long while, I did feel tired. Deep in my bones. After everything, the hospital nights, the humiliation, the battles, I was still here. And now the man who started it all wanted to drag me into court. Ethan claimed I'd harassed him, ruined his finances, turned the neighborhood against him. His lawyer included screenshots from the neighborhood chat, someone must have leaked them, photos of my fence, and copies of the city complaints. But here's the thing about fighting for so long, you get smart. You learn where people leave their footprints. I sat down with my attorney. We went through every claim line by line. We'll fight this. No question, he said. But that wasn't enough for me. I wasn't going to defend myself. I wanted to finish this. I hired a private investigator. Expensive? Very. Worth it? Beyond measure. Within 3 weeks, my PI came back with gold. Ethan hadn't just lost his home because of me. Turns out, he had taken out 2 personal loans to cover the mounting fines and tried running another illegal Airbnb in a nearby county under his girlfriend's name. Worse? His girlfriend was still married to someone else. And Marcus, the new owner of the house, had partnered with Ethan to try and buy up other properties in the neighborhood for short-term rentals. Their plan was to turn the entire cul-de-sac into a mini-party hotel strip. It explained why Marcus ignored every fine. He thought he could outlast us. They weren't just trying to ruin my peace. They were trying to cash out at all our expense. I told my attorney. We filed a countersuit. Harassment. Fraud. And something my PI found that was the real nail in the coffin, insurance fraud. Ethan and Marcus had filed fake damage claims on one of Marcus's properties after a staged break-in. We had video proof from, of all things, the trail cam I'd put up a year ago. It caught Ethan and another man carrying out the fake, stolen items. I turned it over to the police and the insurance company. Things moved fast after that. The court date for Ethan's lawsuit came. He walked in smug, dressed sharp. His lawyer looked confident. That lasted about 10 minutes. When my attorney presented the counterclaims and the insurance fraud evidence, Ethan's lawyer asked for a recess. When they came back, Ethan looked pale. Long story short, the judge threw out Ethan's case with prejudice, meaning he couldn't refile. Then the police moved in. Ethan was arrested for insurance fraud and conspiracy. Marcus? He tried to play dumb. Claimed he didn't know anything about Ethan's scheme. But the trail cam footage, text records, subpoenaed from phone companies, and bank transfers told a different story. He was arrested, too. The legal battle wasn't cheap. Even after Ethan and Marcus were fined and forced to pay damages, I didn't come out ahead. Between attorney fees, private investigator costs, and lost sleep, I was probably $20,000 in the hole. And I can't pretend I didn't make mistakes. I'd gotten obsessed. My days revolved around documenting, filing complaints, gathering evidence. I missed a lot of time I could have spent with my mom while she was still strong enough to enjoy it. She passed quietly in her sleep 3 months after the court case ended. The house next door sold again. This time, to a quiet retired couple who wanted to plant a big vegetable garden. They asked me if it would bother me if they put up a new fence. I told them to go ahead. The war was over. But sometimes, late at night, I sit in my truck with the engine off. Look at the spot where Ethan's guests once stood, chanting, "Crybaby." And I know that, in some ways, I became what they mocked. But I also know this: they will never take my home. They will never take my peace again. I didn't just win. I made sure nobody like them will ever set foot on Oak Ridge Court again.